What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. This is episode 2 of rebuilding the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, I do a completely different team every single time, so if you're expecting to see the exact same team, no, there might be a couple little elements, but this is going to be a different team that I create. Now, again, this is fantasy booking. I'm not saying I'm a GM or any sort of expert, but I've watched hockey my whole life. These are moves that I'd love to see happen, and I think that these are guys that would definitely improve the Toronto Maple Leafs. You guys might agree with some of my thoughts. You might disagree with some of them, but make sure you might agree or disagree, but make sure to leave your comments down below. I'd really love to hear from you guys. And if you do like these videos, make sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate all of the new subscribers and all the people watching, but liking and subscribing, or even disliking if you don't like the video, it actually really helps me. So I'd greatly appreciate that. But let's get into this. So basically, in episode 1, if you want to check it out, I made some moves, a couple minor moves and stuff like that. I tried to make a few bigger moves and talk to in this one and talk about some maybe bigger possibilities for this team. And again, there's always room to be moves to be made at the deadline, but this is how I would start the season with this team. So first of all, in this team, I do not bring back Zach Hyman, because all of the rumors that have been circulating lately is that Zach Hyman might be looking for a big payday. He might be looking for anywhere between $6 to $6.5 million. Again, it's all rumors and speculation, but he could be looking for a big raise, and that could be coming from other teams. Now, also some of the guys that I sign in here, if you guys disagree, again, that's completely up to you guys. But the money that I've distributed is big raises on their previous contracts. So I think that this is probably fair. But yeah, Hyman would be gone. I also in this have hypothetically that Justin Hall would be taken by Seattle because of the way that the Leafs protect their forwards, which you guys will see. And I also am trading Pierre Engvall. So Engvall will not be on the team according to this. So let's look at the big screen here. So the Leafs still have all the same picks because I'm not making any trades that would remove any sort of picks. The only thing I did was remove Pierre Engvall from this team. Now, this is what I would do for the forward group. As you guys are seeing right away, Blake Coleman at a $4 million AAV, playing with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. Now, that would be a pretty big raise for Blake Coleman. He's obviously with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he's done quite a bit for them. He's been a really good addition for them, great depth, and that's something that the Toronto Maple Leafs lacked, obviously, in this playoffs, is depth. But Coleman would be playing alongside of Matthews and Marner. In my opinion, I think that it would be a good fit. His numbers could go, they could go up playing with those guys. You never know. It would be a good fit for him, I think, even just to try to start him there. But you also could move him around the lineup, and that's the thing. I tried to sign a few guys that are flexible and that you can move around the lineup because it would make a lot of sense. So far in 14 playoff games, he has 6 points. In the career in the playoffs, he has 21 in 44 games played. This season, 31 points in 55 games played. That has 14 goals and 17 assists. Now, if we move down here, this would be a pretty nice move for the Leafs, in my opinion. So in his last full season with the New Jersey Devils, and obviously he played 9 games with Tampa in the 1920 season, he had 31 points in 57 games played. I really like these numbers. I think that he could get in that 20-goal range if he was playing in Toronto on that top line with Matthews and Marner. He'd probably get a few really good looks. I just think that it would be a good fit. Now, the next line is Kerfoot, Tavares, Nylander. Now, if you look at some of the numbers, you would think right away, why is Kerfoot on that second line left wing? And by the way, that can be changed. Again, you can shuffle things around. But Kerfoot, Tavares, Nylander actually worked really well. And Kerfoot proved this year in the playoffs that he can be a contributor when he's told, hey, listen, we need you to step up. We need you to play good here. And he was finally healthy. That's the big thing. He was healthy. He put up numbers. I believe he was like second or third in points on the Leafs in the playoffs. Him, Galchenyuk, and Nylander were playing really well together offensively. Of course, we had Galch with that big giveaway, but that's okay. That's okay. He played really well. But Kerfoot on that second line, it would work. It gives the Leafs an option to get another centerman down there. And the other thing, too, is if the Leafs don't like Kerfoot there and they don't believe that he has a spot on this team on the third line, wherever it may be, they could just trade him and try to get a guy that's as good as him, or trade for that cap space and try to acquire a different player to play on that left wing, or utilize the money in other places if they have guys that they want to bring up. There's a ton of different options, but I do believe that second line would work with Kerfoot, Tavares, and Nylander. Now, the third line has Alex Galchenyuk. I'm bringing him back on a $1 million deal. I think that this is a prove-yourself contract because Galchenyuk, while he did prove himself, you can't just go off of a little small sample size that he played with Toronto. Even though he was good in the regular season, he showed a lot of heart. He has grit. But in the playoffs too, he played really well, but you can't just be like, okay, now we know you're good and give him this money. No, it's a 1 year, $1 million. You might even be able to get him a little bit less, hopefully, and go, we helped you. We brought you back. We helped to rebuild you a little bit, and we want you to play for this team. We're going to give you an opportunity to play, and maybe you end up playing a little bit of time on the second line. Maybe you get a second power play unit time. Maybe, hell, if our power play still sucks, maybe we try you on that first unit. The Leafs can give him opportunities, and I think he likes the fit. The skating coaches, the development with the Marlies, everything worked really well for Galchenyuk, and I think that he just makes sense. Now you're going to see that third line center, Mikael Granlund, a guy that the Leafs were already interested in at $4 million. And then I have Jason Spezza on the right wing on that third line. Listen, guys, I think Spezza can play those third line minutes. The Leafs third line isn't going to get a ton of minutes. They're not going to get a bunch of minutes in play in like a bunch of key situations, but they are going to get a bunch of offensive zone starts with those three. In my opinion, I think it would work out really well. Even if you have to throw Spets out there for a few faceoffs, he's very good at the faceoff dot. You bring him in there to win some draws. It makes sense to me. I think that Spets on that third line, there's nothing wrong with that. You can also move it around. You could put him on the fourth line if you see somebody else producing. It just makes sense. But let's get back to Mikael Granlund because the Leafs were interested in him. I have him signing a $4 million deal here, and that would be a slight raise on his other contract. Now, looking at his numbers, 29 years old, and I believe Coleman is 29 as well. Yeah, they're both 29, so decent signings here. You give them a few years to try to bolster this team. And again, these signings might be looked at as, oh my God, an overpayment. But if you're really, really worried about depth here and you want to win, this is a win now speed skill lineup and with a bit of defensive responsibility as well. But this is the depth speed skill lineup. And there's going to be people that hate this lineup because of the defensive side of the game. I think the Leafs do have guys that can play that defensive side of the game. But I also do believe that you can acquire that at the deadline. It's way easier to acquire those types of depth defensive style players than it is to acquire skill. When you can get them in free agency for just dollars instead of having to pay a first round pick or to pay a second round in a B level or A level prospect, you just sign them for free. You're paying them money, but you're signing them for free, and you might have to overpay a little bit because of the taxes issue in Canada and Toronto or in Ontario. But this deal would just make sense. Maybe it's less. Maybe Coleman's less. I don't know. But to be as fair as possible as a Leaf fan, I'm overpaying a little bit. Some people might think this is an underpayment, which it damn well could be. But it also depends on the term. If it's only a couple years or if it's a little bit more long term, if the Leafs can offer an extra year on the contract, maybe they add a fourth year or a fifth year, which would be, I don't know about that one. But if these guys can get locked into a deal at $4 million a piece, maybe they're looking at 4.5 each, and at that point you can only get one of them and sign a lesser player. This is just hypothetical fantasy booking, and the reason I call it rebuild, people were mad about that. When you break something, you have to build it. The Leafs were not perfect. They were broken in these playoffs. They need to be rebuilt a little bit, so that's why I called it that. Sorry to get off track there a little bit, but in the playoffs here, he was very productive. 5 points in 6 games played in these previous playoffs. And during the regular season, he had 29 points in 55 games played. Or sorry, this was career playoffs, my bad. In this past season, 51 games played, 27 points. So kind of comparable numbers, which is in his career playoffs and this past season. So looking at his numbers, he's been a very productive player in the past. Now, again, this is another guy that you can move around in the lineup if you feel fit. If you want to move him into the second line spot, or if you want to move him into a center spot and give, maybe Tavares needs a little time on the wing. I don't know. That sounds ridiculous, but You never know. Maybe they go with the Tavares, Matthews, Marner line on the first line, and then they bump down the second line and make it a Coleman, Nylander, Granlund line. I don't know. There's a bunch of different options that the Leafs could go with, which I wouldn't mind that second line there and give Johnny T some time with the big boys, even though he is one of the big boys. But Matthews and Marner are the guys that are supposed to be putting up the most points on this team. But regardless, I'm getting winded just talking about this crap, even though we all know how Marner and Matthews performed in the playoffs. No bueno, not good. But 30 points in 63 games played in the 1920 season. But then his production in terms of points per game was a little better here. 27 points in 51 games played. I do believe in the right situation in Toronto, he is a 15-plus goal scorer. And I mean, in a full 82 games, he's definitely giving you 20-plus goals. I mean, in 51, he had 13. You're definitely getting 20 out of this guy. He's done it multiple times. I just think that this would be a decent option for the Maple Leafs. Again, it all depends on the money that he's looking for in free agency, other teams that are willing to overpay for him, because there's a lot of teams in the same boat. We got to realize that. We got to come together and realize that. There's a lot of teams that are going to try to mimic what Tampa did. There's a lot of teams that are going to mimic what, Vegas and Colorado, and teams that have a lot of star power and a lot of skill and a lot of scoring. They're going to try to mimic that. And if the Leafs can get at least one of these guys, that would be great. I think that it would be very, very good pickups for them. So I just think Granlund would be a good fit here. So the fourth line has Robertson moving up. And again, I talked about it the last time. You need Robertson because I do believe he's got an elite shot. And if you haven't seen this kid shoot, you just need to watch his highlights. And then look at his slap shot goal that he put past Aaron Dell, who is a proven backup goaltender in the NHL. I mean, he's NHL caliber, obviously. He's been in the league for a long time. Just absolutely just cranked one past him in that blue and white game, off the crossbar, off the post and in. He's got an elite shot. He's got a great one-timer. I'd love to see him on the power play, and I really wouldn't want to see him on the fourth line. But if the Leafs can have depth where they can have a really good fourth line, I'd love to see it. I think that he is a lock, and the Leafs need him there because he's cheap. If he can give you 10 goals, if he can just give you 10 goals, you're laughing. And then you slowly build him up the lineup. He's still young. I believe he'll be 20 going into this year. Elite shot, fast, young, cheap. You need it. Power play option as well. He is definitely a power play option. Then I have Kirill Semyonov. Hopefully I'm saying that name correctly. He was playing with Mikheyev in the KHL. So I thought that it would be cool to put them together now. You could split them up. You could have Mikheyev somewhere else. You could have a different centerman there. You could have Adam Brooks playing consistently. I do believe Adam Brooks is an NHL fourth liner on that center position. There's some people that would argue in a full 82 he could prove to be a good third line player, but I do believe he's a fourth line stud. And when I say fourth line stud, people are going to scratch their head and go, what the hell? I just think that he's a perfect fourth line centerman. I don't think that there's anywhere else that he should play. That's personally my opinion. I just believe that Brooks could be that fourth line guy. But because I'm trying to make these teams a little different, we're going a little outside the box here. Kirill Semyonov, the Leafs signed him from the KHL. So let's just quickly take a look at his numbers here. So he is 26 years old. Avangard Omsk of the KHL. He was wearing an A on his sweater this year. 26 points in 60 games played. Previously, he had 46 in 62. The guy can put up points. In the playoffs, 9 and 23, and then the previous year, 6 and 6. So basically what you're hoping is that he gets to this 19-20 form a little bit here. You want him to get to that, if he was in the NHL, maybe give you 8 goals, give you a little bit of depth there, put up some assists, playing with Mikheyev, maybe they spark something there, maybe there's a little bit of a little bit of chemistry there. But the reason why I think that this line would work is because you've got a lot of pushing the pace. Mikheyev is a bigger dude. Semyonov is 6'1". Robertson's smaller, but he's not afraid to get into the corners. He's not afraid to get hit. He got cranked a couple times in the NHL, but he's very fast. Like, I want this fourth line to be like push the pace all the time. And look at what Brooks did. When Brooks came up, I thought he was really good. You could just swap those two guys out, and I love that fourth line as well. So there's options, there's depth options, and that's why I would be very happy with that fourth line. I think it would work out pretty well. And before I get too carried away with the blue line here, the salary cap, of course, would be at 81.5 with only 20 on the roster. The Leafs would have $645,000 in space, but you can accumulate that throughout the year. Hopefully, don't have too much injury trouble. Knock on wood. My desk is wood. But you hopefully don't have too much injury trouble, and then towards the deadline, you can make a move. And like I said, maybe Mikheyev doesn't work out anymore. You send him down, you put him on waivers, whatever you do, you trade him, or you do something with Kerfoot. Maybe you don't sign both Granlund and Coleman, and you get guys that are cheaper, and you have a little more money. They have options, and that's why I wanted to do this. Now, the blue line, Riley, Brody staying the same. Now, Muzzin and Liljegren. I am going to take so much crap for this. Now, like I said, Justin Hall would be selected in the expansion draft in this fantasy booking here, right? Timothy Liljegren's ready for the NHL. And honestly, this is something that can be clipped, and maybe it's going to come and bite me in the butt. But I honestly do believe he's ready. I think he's very, very good. He's a good puck handler. I just want him to get that opportunity. And I think I agree with what a lot of people have been saying online. You can't have this guy come in and just play a few minutes a night or be a depth defenseman 6-7. No, you need to let this guy play minutes. When he played big minutes with the Marlies, he was very good. He's responsible in both ends of the ice. They really, really have been grooming this guy to be an all-over-the-place player in terms of being able to play in the offensive zone, give you points, be a power play quarterback, play very good defensively, be a guy that is physical. He's only 22. He's 6 feet tall. He's cheap. Again, very cheap. That's what you need. You need on that back end, and I think he could be very productive. Now, last year with the Marlies, 30 points in 40 games played, and this year 11 in 21. In the playoffs, 5-13. Previously 4-20, but that was his rookie year with the Marlies. Now, there's a lot of good information here if you want to go to elite hockey prospects, but I just kind of want to sum it up a little bit. Liljegren was brought in and known in the draft as an offensive defenseman who could really move the puck. He was a guy who was in the top 3 of the draft, but then when he got sick and he started not to play, he went down the ranks a little bit. People were worried about him, but the Toronto Maple Leafs have taken their time, have really groomed this guy to be a guy that can play in the top 4 eventually or as soon as next year. Now, I just really do believe in the defensive role playing with Jake Muzzin and getting big minutes, that he could be an upgrade over Justin Hall. I also just think that he moves the puck better. Again, this could be something that I just die on my sword talking about, but I actually really like Timothy Liljegren. My opinion has changed a lot on him after watching him play originally. I wasn't a big fan of him when he first came over to Toronto, and I was like, ooh, this guy doesn't look too good. But man, over time watching him and hearing from people that have watched him consistently, not a couple games, a lot of games, have said, man, this guy is good. He should be on that blue line. So I'd like him there. And then Rasmus Sandin and Zach Bogosian, bringing back Bogosian at $1.1 million. You'd love to have him at less than that, but if that's what it takes, maybe it takes a little bit more. You do it. I think Sandin and Bogosian could really work. They're both physical. Sandin's proven that even though he's a smaller guy, that he'll hit. He's not afraid to do that. Bogosian, obviously physical, very sound. A very welcome addition to this team this year. Bogosian was awesome, and if you disagree with that, then I don't know what you were watching, because I loved Bogosian this year. I thought he was fantastic, and he's just a guy I'd love to bring back. Now, you also could bring back Dermott for depth. That's completely up to you if you shed a few dollars off of somebody else. But I do believe the Leafs have enough defensemen where they can make a move at the deadline, and it'd be perfectly fine. Now, moving over to the goaltending position here, Jack Campbell obviously as a starter. In the last video, I had Reimer at 2.5. Hopefully, you could get him for less. But the reason why I want him in the backup position is because, sure, he's 33 years old, but he's dealt with the Toronto media before. He's done it all, okay, guys? He was really good here in Toronto, too. This past year, 2.66 goals against, a .906 save percentage. His numbers have always been relatively good. This one outlier year here in Florida, both years here in Florida, the first one was good. His first year in Florida was really good. But These 2 years in Florida weren't too great, but man, 2.66 the last 2 seasons, playing a good amount of games, giving Campbell some time to rest. I think it makes sense. Reimer would be a really good addition, but this would be my team. These are the guys I'd go with. You can see here, long-term IR just to shed that salary. Hall would be in Seattle. Engvall would be traded. In terms of depth, Joey Anderson could come up. I'm very sure he could. Philip Hallander's interesting. I wonder when they give him a shot. Brooks, obviously, Amirov is not ready. Hollowell is a guy that the Leafs organization really like. Kivi Halme is a guy that you only use if you really need him to be used. But this is what I would go with. These are options that you could go with. Again, you could put Brooks in this position instead of Semyonov. You might not sign both Coleman and Granlund. Maybe Galchenyuk isn't back. Maybe Kerfoot's the guy that gets taken, and then that changes up the blue line. But I'm going to be doing a bunch of these different rosters. Like I said, I did it in the first video. This is the second version of it. So if you did like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. These videos do take a lot. I'm talking consistently for like 20 plus minutes, so I would appreciate a like or even a dislike if you didn't like it, and your your selections and your roster down below. Tell me if I'm crazy, tell me if I'm nuts, tell me if you liked it. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, let's just put in the chat, put your comment and then put "Go Leafs Go" at the end of it, so I know that you watched the whole video. But thank you guys so much for watching. Again, though, if you are new, make sure to subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I do appreciate all of you as always. Peace.